What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Most Valuable Podcast. I am Mark Williams with my colleague
Victor Castro.
and we are just two dudes who do real estate for a living. And we wanted to thank you for joining us on episode 20. We're already 20 episodes into this podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for listening and subscribing. And if this is your first time listening, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. Every Thursday, 9 a.m., we drop a new episode. And on all your streaming platforms, you can find us under the Most Valuable Podcast. And if you want to look at our pretty faces, you can find us on YouTube. And today, Victor, let's make interest rates great again. So let's get into that. Election is over. Inauguration happened, not too long ago. We got a new president who was a past president. Does that make him the new president, or is he still the past president, just another term? Who knows, right? There's someone in between. But we want to talk about how that is going to impact you, the potential buyer, when it comes to the housing market, right? Now, the current president, hey, political views, side note, before we get into this, if you don't agree with who the president is, you have the right to do so. And we're not here talking about who we voted for or stuff like that. We're just talking about how this presidency, these next 4 years of this person being president, may impact the housing market.
Whether it's positive or negative, that's all we're talking about.
That's all we're talking about. You're more than entitled to your own views and your own political views. All right, got that out the way. So, president, boom, comes in. Trump's like, housing affordability is ridiculous. We need to do something immediately about it. Now, one thing they're talking about is he's pressuring them to lower the rates, right? And maybe a good understanding of why the rates are so high now is maybe what caused that. Victor, can you share with everybody maybe like what your views are on what you think why in the last 3.5 years, the rates have skyrocketed?
Look, guys, we were in a pandemic, okay? We were in a worldwide pandemic that affected everyone's financial output.
Yeah.
And that's essentially why home prices went up.
Yeah.
Is because they needed to stimulate the economy at that point.
So they started printing that money.
Right. Not only that, but the bond market shot up.
Yeah.
And interest rates, mortgage rate, and those are two different things, okay, guys? But mortgage rates came down to historical lows, never before ever seen, ever. And what did that cause? Even though they wanted us to stay at home, people went out. And they started purchasing homes.
Vehicles, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, with those rates, we were talking, there was VA homes, and veterans deserve all the benefits they can get. We salute you guys and gals, and we are greatly appreciative of your service and dedication to our country. But VA rates were like in the twos. I think my neighbor who was a vet, he had refinance. He was in like 2.5% interest rate. That was lower than some car interest rates.
I know someone that has a 2.1.
Oh, and 30 year.
30 year.
Yeah. So there was 15 years in the ones. Nuts. You're basically, you gotta think of this grand scheme of things, right? Those listening, you're probably in your car right now. You might be listening to us in your car, right? Great way to kill 30 minutes. Listen to our podcast. Think about it. You're being lent, 40, 50 grand at, if you can get like a 1% interest rate, essentially like basic interest, you're talking about 50 grand will cost you $5,000 to borrow. Okay. What if I told you that if I gave you $500,000 to borrow, you're only going to cost you $50,000 more over the next 30 years. It doesn't work that way. It's not simple interest, but I'm just for the point of the
Just to keep it as simple as possible.
Right?
Yeah.
500 grand's only cost you 50 grand and you got 30 years to pay me back. And what if I told you that 500 grand is going to go up by 3% year over year? So essentially after year one, you made 15,000. So now you really only owe 35K. So within 3.5 years, that interest is already covered and then everything else is profit.
It's a no-brainer.
There'll be 100 people ready to buy a home. And guess what? There's 100 people for every house.
Lined up outside.
Man, do you remember that?
Oh, my God.
Do you remember like going to open houses and there was legit like a line outside?
Yeah, man. It was insane, man. Look, granted, rates were already low before COVID. I bought my house at a 3.1%.
That's crazy, bro.
Even before COVID.
Yeah.
And I could have refinanced, but it didn't make any sense to refinance if I already have a 3.1%. Yeah. Paying money for
doing all that paperwork and stuff.
It made no sense.
Maybe in the grand scheme of things, but I get you just got it. Right?
I just got it.
Yeah, exactly. So how does that look today? Fast forward, right? So bond market, that affects kind of the mortgage, regular rates, whatever. All that economic stuff, right? I barely pass economics, but all that economic stuff. Okay, cool. Basically, they printed too much money, and now they're trying to get it back. And by doing that, you raise the rates, right? So now if it's more expensive to borrow money, it's less. They're lending out less money, and then the money that's already out there is costing more to have it floating around. So, the government's trying to pull back some of this money. That's really the basics about it. Print too much, raise the rates to try to get it back, right? Cool. So rates now, like how does that, when we're talking about affordability, when the president's like, there is an issue with affordability. I want to give an example and then I'll let you chime in, Victor, and you can give some examples too. So I just got in the contract last night for some clients. I'm helping them buy their second home. And this isn't like a vacation home. They're buying another primary residence. You are able to buy another primary residence within a 60-mile range as a conventional lending, not FHA, conventional lending. If the other property you're renting out, and their reason is to help family, like, disabled family member, right? So they're going to be moving someone in and they're going to take care of them and bring them closer. It makes more sense to get a bigger spot and then rent out the other spot since the interest rate is so low. Cool. So we are in contract and the rate, as we haven't locked the rate, but if we were to lock the rate today, their interest rate is 7.725%. 7.725%. Now, this is the second home that I've helped them buy. I helped them buy their first home about 4 years ago. Yeah, about 4 years ago.
You said 7.725?
Yeah, conventional.
Almost 8%?
Almost 8%, right? And we got money for a buy down, but the base rate, as we haven't locked, but the rate's been kind of fluctuating between, I think from when we approved them 2 months ago in November, it was like low 7s and they went to mid 7s and they went back to the low 7s and they went mid. Then of course, when it's time to like start shopping for homes, it keeps rising. That's just how it seems to work, right? Anyways, I helped them about 4 years ago purchase their first property. And they did conventional, same amount of down payment. And I think their interest rate was like 3.625. A 4% interest change in 4 years. So every year it went up like 1%. Okay. About the same price of a home. Okay. This home I think is a little bit more than what they paid for, but nothing significant where it should cause a drastic change in payment. But their payment now is like, I want to say their payment past their all-in on that original home was like high 2000s, like 2,800, 2,900, something like that. This payment all in is like $5,000. It's almost like it's over a $2,000 difference for the same home in the same city at about the same price. The only thing that's changed is the interest rate. $2,000, bro. Like, that's crazy. Just just because of the rates. So now think about it. Think about all those people that 4 years ago were in the market in these neighborhoods because they couldn't afford it. And let's just say that was the top of their budget. They can't afford it now.
Yeah, a lot of people are in the same limbo, man.
Yeah.
They're having to rethink it. Maybe they can mathematically afford it, but they're like, wow, am I doing the right thing right now?
Exactly. Like, do I want to be what they call it, be house rich and cash broke? You know, yeah, you have the home, but all your money goes to paying for this home.
You don't have much to work with after that. But you know what, bro? We're going to talk about the values of that too.
Yeah, for sure. Why don't you just get into it?
Let's get into that. So look, we spoke about the bad side of having higher interest rates, but there's always the other side of the coin. Look, I just helped my sister buy a house. She feels like she questions it every single day. She hits me up. She's like, Victor, did I do the right thing here? I don't have any money for anything else. I feel like I'm just living for my house.
Welcome to home ownership. Not just joking.
Look, she complains, but then she knows that on the flip side, eventually rates are not always going to be where they're at. They're eventually going to come down.
Yeah.
And when she does, she'll be able to take advantage of being able to refinance the interest rate on her loan. When she does that, she could potentially eliminate anywhere from $600 to $800 off her payment, give or take, depending. And she's going to finally be able to breathe.
Yeah. Let's dive into the word refinance, Victor.
Yes.
A lot of agents, we throw it out there. Oh, you could refi.
Well, what is it?
Don't, marry the house, not the rate, right? Date the rate, not the house, right? Whatever that saying goes, right? But someone right now is listening to our podcast and is saying, what do they mean by refinance? They may understand like the rate will change, but what is actually a refinance?
So it's when you refinance the terms on your loan without touching how much you actually owe on it. So essentially going from a higher rate to a lower rate because that is what is available to the consumer at that point. So you essentially start the clock again on the loan. You start another 30-year period, but at a lower rate.
And do you have to get approved again?
You have to get pre-approved again.
So yes. You have to go through the whole approval process.
You have to go through the pre-approval process again. You have to make sure that your credit is in good standing. You still make the income that is needed to take care of this payment, and that your debt hasn't drastically increased in the last, year or two, whenever, whatever that time frame was between you originally getting the home to refinancing. As long as everything is in line, you're able to refinance.
And that's a great explanation, Victor. Couldn't explain it better myself. And if you listen to that, so if nothing really, things happen, but let's just say nothing changed. If you're still in the same job, right? Your credit stayed the same. The only new debt you took on was this home. Then you should be able to qualify and refinance, because now you're going to have to pay less. So if you already qualify for the payment here and the refinance is dropping the payment here, if everything stayed the same within the last year, it should be a pretty slam dunk, pretty quick refinance.
Yeah, exactly. And so, look, thank God my sister has no debt, has great credit, and has a great job. And that's what I'm telling her. I'm like, look, I know it might be, very tough right now, tough times to not do what you like to do, travel, and so on and so forth, but it's going to pay off. This little sacrifice that you're making right now eventually will pay off.
It's kind of like a forced sacrifice.
Yeah.
She's forced to keep her credit good because she doesn't have money to go do something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? If you think about it that way.
If you want to put it that way, it's a different way of looking at it. And it's funny because I've told her that, hey, at least you're not having to spend and put yourself in more debt.
Yeah, racking up a credit card or something like that. Oh, I got time to pay it off. Well, you don't, because you got to make sure you pay this mortgage. So I think we talked about that on another podcast, but you start thinking differently as a homeowner. Like, I got to pay this mortgage. Do I really need a new car right now? Do I really need to buy this the Birkin bag. I keep seeing everything. Do I really need to pay for this $5,000 for this purse?
Yeah.
You start thinking like, man, my credit card is going to be maxed out. What if my water heater breaks? You know, I'm going to have to boil water on the stove to take a bath.
It's funny. She said that. She's like, what if this breaks or that breaks?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a calculated move.
Yeah.
We looked at the house and bought a move-in ready, turnkey ready home for a reason with paid off solar.
Yeah.
So you don't even have an electricity bill. Really.
Yeah. So, it's all that, right? And then, you start thinking differently too, based on your own self. Like, for instance, I'm going to be hosting Super Bowl party. So I'm starting to get the home ready, and we're going to get a little jumpy house for the kids. And I was doing something on the side of my home, and there's an outlet, like an outside outlet that last time I got a jumpy house, we plugged in. So I plugged something in that outlet just to make sure it worked, and it didn't, right? And I'm like, oh, damn, the outlet doesn't work. Well, I'm pretty handy. I deal with homes for a living. We've been part of many renovations with clients and ourselves. So in my garage, in one of the cabinets, I have all these extra like plugs and outlets. And so I take the outlet apart. I test to see if the wire is still hot. So it's working. I switch out the outlet. It cost me $1. But maybe your sister doesn't know how to do that and doesn't know who to call. You got to have that money to pay the electrician. Probably cost you like $150 to do it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I get.
You start thinking differently.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a window broke in my house. It's not broke, but the seal broke, and I didn't think it was under warranty. So I've been like procrastinating on getting it replaced because I know it's expensive. It's a huge window. Turns out it has a lifetime warranty. Woo, free. But I'm thinking in my head, man, this is gonna be $3-4 grand. I gotta start putting money aside to get this window fixed. So when you become a homeowner, a whole new thought process. But let's get into this. So affordability. So I gave an example of my clients. So this is what President Trump is talking about. Like, it's so expensive just to get into home ownership. And that's supposed to be some type of the American dream, right?
Yeah.
Like, I talked to my wife's parents who came across illegally to have a better life from Mexico, right? And they've created a better life from their family and themselves. But when they came across, one of their main goals was to become a homeowner. And like, that dream is, I feel like if you talk to the younger generation, what I call it, Gen
Z,
Alpha, the Alpha generation now is like born after 2000 or something like that. So these kids are like, 25, mid-20s, right? Where our parents, if you're born in the 80s or in the 70s, like, your parents probably had you in their 20s, like early 20s. Now people are having kids later on in their life, Gen Alpha and then Gen Z. Some of them don't even care about home ownership.
Yeah, it's not a priority. It's not on their list.
Because of how much it costs.
But look,
I think that's the main thing, bro. I think, people are like, oh, I got to pay $5,000 to live here.
To each their own, Mark. But look, everything is expensive. Not just home ownership, but rent is expensive now. If you're paying someone else's mortgage at the end of the day,
you're paying a mortgage for somebody,
right? And look, I've spoken to people recently, and they're like, "Well, my rent just went up by X amount of money. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of this. I want to have control over my living situation. So maybe, even though rates are high, maybe it makes sense for me to be able to get into a home right now because there's not very much competition out there."
And that's one of the positives.
Yeah.
I think that's a great segue. One of the positives right now, like, so for instance, this home that we got in contract, they had it on the market 2 weeks. We went and saw it at the first open house. It checked off almost every box. It's what they're looking for. And they were, the seller was like, we're going to set an offer due date. And they kept it on the market for 2 weeks. We were ready to write an offer day of, but they wanted to keep it on the market. During those 2 weeks, I showed these clients other homes. We actually wrote an offer on another house that, in all honesty, checked off more of the boxes. However, that house was on the market we went and looked at it day 3. And when I called the agent saying we were going to write an offer, they just went in the contract.
Wow.
That house was on the market for like 2 days.
So it must have been immaculate.
No, it was a little bit of a fixer, but the neighborhood was a little bit better neighborhood as far as location wise.
Yeah.
And the house was a little bit bigger, where it had this bonus room that could be a 5th bedroom, which was kind of a plus, right? And we wrote a backup offer just in case, right? We wrote a backup offer on that home. Fast forward, offer due date is on this one. We write an offer. They counter offer us. We counter offer them. They said no. We said, thank you very much. We're going to continue to look because it's a buyer's market. And yes, that one was an exception, but more homes are going to pop up and we'll just wait.
It's crazy.
Right? No, we'll just wait. And then, well, they called me back like 2 days later and said, hey, we had to change your heart. Well, you know why they had to change your heart? Because no one wrote them an offer.
It's funny that you said that, and actually makes sense to talk about it right now. Yes, it's a buyer's market, but if you look at all the stats on like different apps that realtors use, many would argue it's a seller's market due to something called inventory.
Yes.
Because of the lack of inventory homes for sale, there's just it's like, what are you going to write an offer on if there's not enough to, for you to choose from?
Yeah. So supply and demand.
Supply and demand. And that's actually a good segue.
Let's talk about we experienced supply and demand during COVID. Kid formula, that factory went down, and we both had kids at the same time. It was so hard to find formula. Sriracha, remember the Sriracha family shut down?
Couldn't find it anywhere.
People were charging $100 for Sriracha. What are people struggling with right now?
Eggs,
bro. I go to a local grocery store, right? And the last 2 times I went, I go grocery shopping every week. There's no eggs. So I go to Costco. Costco's the only company who's figured out how to source eggs because they have a whole refrigerator full. And I bought like 4 cases of eggs at Costco.
A fridge you have to walk in through with
yeah, it's freezing in there.
It's freezing.
But what I'm getting at is like, we went to Costco. I'll usually get like a thing of eggs when I'm there. But I specifically went there for eggs. And I grabbed 2 and I was like, you know what? I'm going to grab a 3rd. Right? And I'm actually thinking about switching grocery stores because I went to another grocery store. I won't say the companies. And they had eggs. I'm like, well, why am I going here? This is about the same distance away. And I just randomly walked in here and they had a whole aisle full of eggs. So supply and demand, someone's able to have a better supplier than the other, right? And then it's the same thing with housing, right? Like supply and demand. Certain neighborhoods have no supply. I don't know if you've seen that on IG, but there's been like a neighborhood in the San Diego County and it was an open house. Did you see that IG post? And it was like, oh, they were making fun of the comments were like, oh, I thought the housing market was going to crash. And it's this very affluent neighborhood in San Diego County. And there's a line of people around the corner for this one house.
Open house?
Yeah. And then inside, it's packed.
I didn't see that.
Over 100 people. And the thing is that someone has sent it to me. A client sent it to me and was like, is the housing market really like this? And I said, yes and no, because it depends on the neighborhood. That neighborhood, maybe no one ever sells. That might be that one house a year that comes up in that neighborhood and everyone wants to be in that neighborhood, right? So you're going to have a crazy amount of demand because the supply is so low, right? But then there's other neighborhoods where, you can get in. We just closed a deal and the home was on the market for 60 days, right? So you had 2 months of it sitting there. We've experienced that selling homes where a home just sits because that city and neighborhood, the demand is not that high.
It ain't that hot. And that's what I'm saying. It's like for us, we know that there's a lot of opportunity out there where you're going to probably find a situation where you can negotiate really good terms as far as pricing, credits back to your buyer, be able to have all your contingencies, all your protection into your offer and and still get a great deal. But then you have certain neighborhoods with, that are, have amazing homes that are hot and it's harder to get.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we're on this point of inventory. So that's another topic that President Trump has talked about is creating more housing inventory. And I think he signed something to expedite building more homes on federal land, like federally owned land, right? So the government owns a lot of land. So they're saying, hey, we're going to incentivize builders
to come build here.
To come build here. The only problem with that is this land is usually kind of in undesirable areas, right? So you may see like growth in certain parts of the country or state that you would like, why is a city being built here?
That's another thing. It's nationwide
and then we're talking about nationwide.
Yeah.
Right. So when they say inventory, maybe the demand isn't as high in Kansas as it is in the Bay Area. Right?
Most likely isn't.
So that's another thing. You get the migration of people going to where these homes are. And I think that's what's unique. That's something you guys really need to understand, you guys listening, is when you hear these stats that the president's talking about, that the news is talking about, they're talking about nationwide statistics, right? Nationwide statistics.
Yeah.
Affordability has kind of always been an issue in the Bay Area. But now that when the whole nation starts feeling it, what do you think that how we feel it here? It's even crazier.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like magnified, right?
It really is because look, home prices here are way more expensive. Just if you're out of state, you're not from California, you're not from nowhere near the Bay Area. What's the median price here in Contra Costa right now, bro? Like 800,
over 800K,
something like that.
Something crazy.
So, and then in certain
that's
parts,
for like a 1,200 square foot home built in 1950 that needs a new roof, gutters, windows. It needs a full renovation.
Right. Other parts of the Bay Area, over $1 million. Right?
Oh yeah,
1.2, 1.3.
San Jose's like $1.5 million, right? San Jose
Something
County,
like that.
something like that. It's crazy. Or Santa Clara County, San Jose City. It's crazy. $1.5 million. Guess what? We don't get paid more. We don't really get paid much more than most people. Like everyone's like, oh, you guys get paid more. Not really. Like, yeah, minimum wage is higher here, but then stuff's more expensive. It all equals this. It all balances itself
Everywhere
out.
You go, it all balances out. Like here, like a lot of people are like, well, in like property taxes, you go elsewhere, property taxes are higher than what they are here in California.
Or lower, or
lower.
Depends,
so it all depends on where
income
you're going.
tax, state income tax. I think we're the highest state, so we get taxed twice.
We're definitely the highest taxed state of all.
Yeah, so I mean, on paper, it may look like we make more in California, but not really. Like the cost of living is equal, or if not more, right? So then you start thinking about like, okay, how about everyone that, we were all I was in that position where, I was a young entrepreneur early in my career somewhere. I didn't make much, but I lived on my own, and you're trying to afford this stuff. It's crazy, bro. So building homes. So the president wants to lower rates and
build more homes.
He wants to build more homes. So, so we talked about how it can positively impact you if you're already a homeowner. Being a new homeowner, lower rates, it's going to impact you because you're going to be able to afford more. I would say the negative, though, is the competition, depending on what part of the state you're in or what part of the country. Just be prepared to like
pay more for the house.
You're going to pay a little bit more than what the house is worth. And then two, it's not going to be as simple as you walk into a home, like it, and buy it. I mean, we were even at a point in COVID where new construction was having like raffles. New constructions was having offers, due dates. Like you're normally just walk into a new construction, you can buy whatever home you want. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they were even short on supply where they were raffling and auctioning off homes to the highest bidders. So just be prepared. It may sound great and you may be sitting there saying, I'm going to wait till rates are back to the 3s, and yeah, okay, they may.
Newsflash, you're never going to see 3% ever again.
Even if you did,
probably not.
But even if you did, even if you wait, if you're in a position now and you're just going to hold out because the rate is the sole deciding factor, now I'm going to break the news to you. You're not ready to become a homeowner anytime.
Not even close.
Because yes, rates play into a factor. And maybe you're like, well, if the rate drops here, I can afford more and then I can buy this house in this neighborhood. Well, newsflash, that house in that neighborhood is going to cost more. And you're going to just be at the same point, right? You're not going to make enough to be in that neighborhood because that neighborhood's going to increase faster than the rate's going to help you.
And look, think about it. You could get yourself into a home now. Maybe it's not the home that you love. Maybe not the one that offers everything that you would like. But at the end of the day, it's an appreciating asset.
Yep.
That is going to be worth. Look, I'll share my story. My home is worth almost $200,000 more than when I bought it. Okay, and I've paid it off to a point where I now have like $250,000 worth of equity.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, let's say that happens, rates come down, and I wanted to make a move over to that neighborhood with the nice, beautiful home, ready to turnkey, and it offers everything that I would want, I can do that because I put myself in a situation where that appreciating asset, which is that this home, my first home, is going to allow me to upgrade to my next home.
Yeah, because you'll sell it. You'll have crazy demand on your current home, right? You'll get over asking. You'll take that equity and just be able to be a contender in the new neighborhood. And with the lower rate, you'll be able to afford more. But then you'll also have this huge down payment. Your payment might actually be less than what your payment is now. Because you had because when you buy your home now,
win.
When you buy your home now, you didn't put $250 down.
No, right? I put a 3.5% down, bro.
Exactly. So now you're putting, let's just say it's $1 million house, $250 is 25% down.
Yep.
No mortgage insurance. You're gonna be you'll get a good rate. The rate will be low. You're probably gonna pay
almost the same.
It's gonna be like and you're just moving over to equity. And guess what? That $250 is still there. You just moved it over to this new property.
But just FYI, I'm not going to do that. You have options.
You have options.
That's the thing that people need to realize. You have options as a homeowner. In a better
position.
Yes, as a renter, you're never going to have an option. You're just going to either buy your first home or continue renting.
And rental prices are at all-time highs now too.
Yeah.
So it's not like just housing prices are expensive. And they're trying, and that's one thing too, like affordability for housing, it just doesn't apply to home ownership. It applies to like rental as well, right? So
talking about rental, I would rent out my house.
I just rent it out.
And then I'd go buy another one.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Exactly. So make interest rates great again. So new presidency, we may see a more accelerated decline in home interest rates. Let's cross our fingers because I know it sounds like we're being negative about it. No, it's a positive thing. 1,000% it's a positive thing. We're just saying if right now you want to buy and you're in a position to buy or you're ready to make that move, don't let the rate stop you. We kind of gave some of the reasons why, because if the rate starts accelerating in the direction that's going to benefit you, guess what? The house you bought at the price today, that price doesn't go up. The housing price stays the same. And we can adjust your rate. As long as you sacrifice, like Victor's sister, you're making that sacrifice and you're not increasing your debts or anything like that, and you're just really living to pay this home, and you end up refinancing within the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to have so much more breathing room.
Absolutely,
right?
man.
And then, inventory. They're looking to build more homes. I see it where I live. They're building a new neighborhood just opened down the street. So, you got to think about like, everyone's like, oh, I saw a post. Oh, things are going to crash. They're going to crash. They're not going to crash. Like, I can't guarantee it. But if I had to bet my house on it that it wouldn't crash, I'd bet my house on it.
It's a no-brainer. I would do the same thing.
So like I said, don't let politics blind you into what's trying to be done. Democrat, Republican, Independent. At the end of the day, we all need somewhere to live. So if someone's in place is trying to make that path a little bit easier, I'm all for it. I'm all for making interest rates great again. And with that, we look forward to winning with you.